Okay, it is time to start assembly. And one of the first things I want to cover is some of the new replacement parts that we are going to be putting into this saw. Okay, this is kind of cool. Backside of arbor wrench. Not very often you use it. At least not very often I've needed it. There's been probably 2 or 3 times in my life where I could not hand undo a blade, and that would have been really handy. The unique thing, of course, about it is that it's very thin, right? So it'll fit on the back side of that arbor. Now these beauties are made by a fellow by the name of Bob Jorley. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Bob. And he produces a whole bunch of different parts for some of the vintage Delta Rockwell equipment, and absolutely beautiful quality. We have beautifully machined aluminum knobs on new tightening shaft assemblies. These shafts appear to be a perfect match, and the machining on these is nicer than the OEM Rockwell units. And the other thing that I picked up was this shaft upgrade kit. He calls it an interior service kit for vintage Delta Unisaw. And I've not put one of these on before, but when I saw this part, it sold me. What we have is basically a clamping collar that isn't limited by a roll pin. Instead, this can be placed wherever is needed, or with whatever offset is needed to actually adjust the play in the raised lower shaft. The other thing that he makes are brass buttons. They're beautifully made. The contour, these buttons have a great looking contour and finish to them. Obviously, if you were to just put a flat end on this against the inside of that radius, it wouldn't grab very well. So I'm really excited to try these, and I think this kit is going to just be a real nice addition. So we'll see how all this goes together. This is this is how you can get in touch with Bob. And I want to add that I paid for all of these. I did not ask for any sponsorship or anything like this. I purchased these because I think these are a beautiful solution, and I get really excited when I see somebody who's producing parts that are better, in my opinion, better than what came out of the factory for 50 to 75-year-old saws and various pieces of equipment. You know, which these old, beautiful pieces of equipment deserve this kind of respect. So that's enough sentimental stuff, but thank you, Bob. Thank you for producing these. I'm just going to work gently back and forth just to suck these castings up together. So, I had a thought that I might be able to sort of just rotate this in, but I see now there just isn't the clearance for that. Oh, there's not much room for fingers. Feels to me like this thing wants to just fall out, which is not great. Okay. Now this this shaft is almost symmetrical, but not quite. It's like half an inch. It's got a pinhole here that's like half an inch or so off center. The good news is I think I've only got a 50-50 shot of messing it up. The bad news is these keyways also actually don't look perfectly symmetrical. No, they're not. We have a shallow keyway and a deep keyway. So that means forwards, backwards. Okay, and the shallow groove does not go on this large key stock here. So we know we need a deep keyway on this piece of key stock. How about that? Okay, that lines up. That's good. And this pin stays on the center, or the inside here. I guess the arbor side, you would say. So that's how that has to go together. So I'm going to get a little grease on that, and I think we got a couple of shims that go in here too. Okay, I had to pull up a parts diagram because I actually thought that there was a mistake in the assembly of this saw, not from the factory, but that in the past 50 years someone else had had this apart. And there was these two spring washers, and they are both stacked, actually I guess on this side, together like that. And I couldn't really understand that. Like, it doesn't make sense. Normally if you're going to have two spring washers on a device, you're typically going to put one on each side. And that's what I expected to see in the part diagram. But lo and behold, it shows them both being here. So that's what we're going with. And this will go in like this, but underneath. So is the idea. And they go right in here. Not that they want to fit. They're definitely a little tight in here. Okay, so I'm thinking about this, and I'm just trying to run this through my head. why does the diagram show 2 here? With keeping the back of my mind, I'm keeping the thought that this 50-plus-year-old saw has probably been apart before. And I was thinking about it. The motors on these things are offset, and they're done that way on purpose because they use a bunch of the weight of the motor to help counter the tension of the belts, right? So whenever you have belts, especially if you can have 3 of them, like in this case, those belts are basically trying to pull the pulleys together. So they offset the weight of the motor, so the motor's not balanced. It's actually helping cantilever and balance out that force. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, okay, what would happen if we had a wave washer or a spring washer on each side? Other than the fact that it might be easier to put in, it potentially would allow this entire assembly to move left or right. Maybe 10 thou, which isn't a lot, but keep in mind our arbor bracket is going to mount right in here. And we really don't want that blade to be able to move 10 thou left or right. So I think actually that the diagram is correct, and that although it seems strange, the 2 wave washers are in fact supposed to be stacked here together. Also, thinking about it, it's possible that 2 wave washers have a lower spring rate than 1 thicker wave washer. And I don't know if this is for sure, but it's just an idea, it's a theory that 2 of these together, which are not bound together, they can move independently, will have a less of a spring rate than if you had 1 that was twice as thick. And if they need to take up a certain amount of space in here, and don't want to greatly increase the spring rate, because if you increase the spring rate, well, it's going to be pushing harder on these 2 casting surfaces. Maybe that was an issue or a concern. So I'm kind of grasping here. I don't know entirely how correct this is. This is my best theory. I'm trying to rationalize why what I see in the diagram, how does that make sense? And I checked another diagram that was about 10 years difference. Same thing. So I can't help but think that they would not be, especially back then when Delta was a really happening company, I can't help but think that they would not be messing their diagram up for over a decade. So that, all of that said, we're going to put the 2 of them together here and hope for the best. Just going to throw a little bit of, this is just a general purpose synthetic grease. That isn't moly or anything like that that's going to track too terribly. I don't know if it's the best thing to use, but I've used this same stuff for, well, 15 years now, I guess, so it's worked in the past. Why change it? Okay, I think I'm going to try lining up this shaft first. Maybe if I can keep this yoke in this position, or whatever this assembly here is called, maybe that'll help. Whoops. Well, it was a good thought. Problem is the 2 of these don't really want to go in together in the same space, right? So and these silly washers are just trying to squeeze out of here like extra sloppy pickles on a sandwich. Every time I try to move anything, out they go. There they go again. Didn't anticipate this being the most difficult part of this. There. Ha! Son of a... Okay, well, we got that. That's good. Won't be taking that apart again, hopefully, for a little while, so At least long enough that I can forget about that. So now I'm kind of wondering what's with the shallow key slot on this side. I'm going to try just sliding the key in after. Our keyway's got a little burr on it there. It's not letting us run this stock through it, so get the file. There we go. That's nice, sir. Beautiful. So I believe this is the order. Our worm gear goes on like this and gets pinned in place. A thin washer next goes on. And then what we have here is we have our casting boss. And that holds, of course, this end of the shaft. And then, against the other side of that casting, we slide on this thick washer. And then we use this lock collar instead of this roll pin. And this lock collar is going to let us sort of set a, not necessarily a preload, but I guess a clearance. And this whole assembly is then sitting through the other boss, which is actually over here by the handle assembly, and then before the handle goes on we have a final washer. I like the fact that they give a cut down version of the set screw. So they give a standard Allen screw, as you would expect for a collar like this, but they also give a very low profile version, which I've got in here. And they say that depending on your saw, you may need to trim a little bit of casting. Here you can see the profile difference. The low profile head on this screw is half the height of this conventional socket head. I think we have the clearance that we need just using their low profile bolt, but I'll keep you up to date on that. And the other thing that was pretty cool is in this kit they include 3 tapered pins. And the taper probably doesn't show up on camera, but there's a slight taper to these, and apparently the older saws use a taper pin instead of a roll pin. So if you have one of those saws, this kit's got you covered too. Good way. Good direction. Yep. That's tightening. Yep. Keep going. Yep, that's what we want.
Let's go this way.
Yep. We're going to put our wrench over here.
Okay.
And now we tighten some more.
No, here.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Notice what I forgot? Alright, I'm going to pull that tilt shaft again, and I'll put these guys in. Well, darn. We have to load them from the other side. Off the back side there. And I notice that these are profiled. So there is a right and a wrong way to put them in. They have an arc to them that match the arc of the shaft. If you rotate them 90 degrees, there's no arc. I always thought that that was just naturally sort of worn in there. And maybe they are in the originals, but these ones are really nicely done. Super small amount of grease. Beautiful. What beautiful little pieces of machining. So the counter bore in the boss of the casting is larger on this side to accommodate those brass slugs, which is why I could not slide them in through the back. Alrighty. That's pretty beautiful. Gosh, look at that turn now. That'll do nicely. Look at that. Alright, I love it. Next, we're going to put our limit stops in. And we'll finalize those positions later once we have a table on. And we'll put on our dust shroud. So this is supposed to be a match set of belts. Although honestly, with only a horse and a half, I doubt that I would notice even if they weren't. Those are going to have to run in, so they'll get run for a couple minutes first. Then they'll get them at a proper tension.